So as I said, we're here at the Church of the Nazarene in Pasadena, and Pasadena is a neighboring community to Altadena, which, as you're all aware of, much of Altadena burned to the ground. Block after block, neighborhoods just destroyed. And so I'm going to be talking here with Jonathan Lewis, who is the pastor of the Altadena Fountain of Life Church. Correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And of course he's very familiar with his flock and what's going on there. It's quite a church, 100 years old. We'll let them tell you about it and their food ministry. And Alice here, unfortunately, her house burned to the ground, and she's got a huge heart, likes to help people, and quite a career in nursing, and then running the food bank out of the church and making friends in the community, not just handing out food, but building relationships. So we're going to talk about that. So this is Pastor Jonathan and Alice. Okay, so first of all, thank you for letting us videotape you guys. And the people watching this know that one of my jobs is to get the story out so they can empathize with you and see what the Lord might have them do to help different ones out. And this is just an enormous catastrophe that we've never seen before. But Pastor Jonathan, why don't we start with you?
Okay.
You've been in and about the Altadena area for some time, and then Ursula over here, you have some connection with her coming back to church, right?
Well,
A few years ago?
yeah, somewhat. Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah.
So let me say this about Altadena. Well, I'm gonna try to condense it and be real quick with it. Altadena, I'm gonna start off by saying Altadena saved my life. 1974, the year 1974, 14 years old. My brother and his wife had felt on hard times and moved back with my father. I was there at 14 years old. They stayed there for about only 6 months. But when they packed up and was going to leave and move to Altadena, they couldn't leave, they said, without me. So my brother ran back into the house and asked me if I wanted to come. And I said yes, no hesitation. I said yes for no hesitation because I was pressured. I was about to be pressured into gangs and violence. I did speak these words at the age of 14. I think no 14-year-old kid should say this or even think this. I said, I'm gonna kill somebody and somebody gonna kill me. I didn't wanna be in that environment. God knew. So he had them come to our church, our house in Altadena. And when they moved, they took me with them. 1974. I was only 14 years old. Well, 3 years later, 77, I'm looking for a prom date. And I met my wife as a prom date. I studied it a whole lot more now, still do. But so God gave me 2 for 1, a prom date and a wife. I want to say I brought her in because she lived 2 blocks away from the church that we're pastoring now. And I live 1 block away from the church that we're pastoring now. And we was just kids walking past this church, never knew that God was going to put us together and pastor the church. So Altadena, the church has saved my life. So when I was the opportunity to come and pastor, I ran to it. And so it's been a blessing to me. Alice comes in because we had this food ministry and a lot of people was coming, so I needed volunteers. So as they was coming in, I was like, could you volunteer? Would you volunteer? Could you? And Alice said yes. 4 people said yes. Alice the only one that stayed. Other people had other things to do after a year, after 2 years, or 2 months, but Alice stayed. And I don't know, how long has it been now since Alice?
Almost 9 years.
Almost 9 years. She joined the church, and now she heads the food ministry. She heads the food ministry. So I thank God. I am very devastated about our church. Understanding right now we don't have a place to go to worship, but we believe in God and trust in God for help, basically. And I thank God for Alice. She's been an inspiration to me. She prays for the people that comes to get bread. And yeah, so right now I'm just thinking about our church, and I'm sorry, just thinking about. But God has. I was talking to my wife, and I said, "Listen, Sandra, I don't have a spirit. God has not given me. Okay, fountain of life is over with." I said, "So I'm fighting. I'm believing the Lord for renewal and rebuild and restoration, because He has not dropped that in my spirit. You know how sometimes you can say, well, okay, I'll turn the page and go to the next chapter. There's no chapter. There's no next page. There's only fountain of life and serving the community of Altadena."
I love that. I love that. Both feet in, not one foot in and one foot out.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Here to stay.
Yes.
Well, Alice, yours is quite a story. You told me a minute ago about last Sunday morning, which is a week ago today, and Pastor Jonathan preached a great message. And tell me about that, and then what happened?
The Lord is my shepherd, and that was his message. And that has really, if I can't remember anything else, I have to know that the Lord is my shepherd, that He's leading me. And He led us out of the house because when we looked at the neighbor's house in the back half of their house was burning. And my son said, we went there and we were looking because we had left. We had to leave right away because our smoke detectors were all going off. That's how much smoke was in the house. And we didn't have power, so we were using a flashlight. So it's hard to hold a flashlight and try to pick up things. And so anyway, to watch the neighbor's house across the street, 3 houses in a row were just there. You could just see nothing but fire. No, you didn't see any contents. And so
This was Tuesday or Wednesday?
That was Wednesday morning at 4 o'clock. And our next door neighbor, she was leaving, and the thing is that we did not get this message that we needed to evacuate because there were 5 of us on the street trying to get out of the driveways to leave. And so they can't say that, they told us to leave. I woke up at 4 o'clock and I was like, wow, I said, wait a minute, the smoke detector, is the house on fire? And that was my first thought. But 5 of us we met in the street. And the neighbor's house was on fire. The palm trees were burning. And so wind
was blowing sideways.
That fire was just, and even looking at the back of my neighbor's house, my son said he said, our backyard is toast. And I'm thinking, okay, if the backyard is toast, the rest of it is burning. But so as it was, we just left, and just to see this fire that and we live in an old neighborhood because there probably are, I think, maybe 3 families that are under 50, and so we are elderly people trying to escape. And so as it was, 42 years of living there. And I finally decided that, last year in July, I wouldn't renew my nursing license, and I had been doing it for 50 years, and my patient had passed in February. So when July came, I did my continuous education units, and then I paid for that, and then I said, you know what? I don't need this license right now because I'm not going to have another patient that I really need to have the skills for that or need my license. I can just still take care of them because I do, I was still taking care of patients really by setting up their medication, doing their blood pressures. And this was all without pay. This was just because I knew them and I knew the need. So as it is, it was rough because I couldn't drive my car because it was too much fire and my son was driving and he knew that I was panicked already for the fire. So I had to leave my car there. So my car is 18 years later, my car is gone. So as it is, and then I was hurt over the food bank, not having the food bank, and then when people were calling me about that, not knowing the situation with the church, it was very hard. And the fact that they're asking, okay, 3 people called me Wednesday morning. Here we are at the Civic Center, evacuated. And I told them, I said, we're not having it because, the fire. And then they called me Thursday and they said, but what about Saturday? Because I guess they were anticipating that there was no more fire. But so I said, you know what? I'll have to let you guys know when we can do it because I said, sadly, our church burned as well. And they were like, what? The whole church or just part of it? And I was like, the church looks like my house, flat, and it's just, it's been a roller coaster because I was like, oh, well, wait a minute. And I sew, and so I had sewing machines, and my son said, and I said, oh, no, I got this sewing machine from when I went to North Carolina to work. I got a sewing machine that was $3,500, and she gave it to me. I only had to pay the shipping, and that was it. So I was kind of devastated about that, and I said, oh, Jill gave me this, and my sister who passed gave me different things. And so I'm now wearing my sister's shoes that that my niece had saved, and so then she gave me. So the clothes that I have on are from people that gave me clothes. And so, right now it's rough and it's hard because yesterday we went to eat and my son, we're sitting there crying, and then they said, oh, you know what? And so we just told them what happened, and they said, oh, we'll just pay for your food. And so then they gave us a gift card, and a lady that we just met, well, actually had never seen. She was an organizer. We were trying to get the house organized. Well, it's really organized now. And so we had not met her, but she came yesterday and gave us clothes, and she gave me a $500 Amazon card so I could order some clothes and things that I wanted. So the Lord has been good, and it's, and I'm like, wow, people are just coming that we don't even know, and my son has so many friends and voiceover because that's one of his side jobs, and his boss paid for the hotel where we're staying. And so the Lord has been there, and I said, well, those things that are there that I didn't get out are not anything that, I couldn't replace my son or my life. And so anything that's there that's gone, I just say, well, Lord, you organized it for us. Remember we were trying to donate things? Yep, they're all gone now. So I just look and I just have to thank God and, people, and friends. I mean, this is a childhood friend that I have that lost his home. And so we've been talking, and it's really hard because, we're still thinking, we've known each other since we were 5. And, when you get to be 70 and he's 73, so when you get to be that old, and then you're like, oh, and we lost all of this. He lives like 3 blocks away from me. And my other neighbor was best friends with my brother. And we all grew up together. And so now
you all grew up in the same neighborhood, right?
We all grew up in the same neighborhood. And the school that we went to was Garfield Elementary, and Bonds is sitting right on top of where our school was. And so anyway, but it's God has been good. You know, He's blessed us, and you know, in ways that we didn't see. You know, one of His friends brought paper plates and food and everything that we needed, and so, you know, and then people are giving us things that people that we don't even know. And you know, someone called and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna come by and drop. Where are you?" And so, and I was trying to think of who he was. He's a plumber. And I was trying to think, what did you do? He said, "Remember that sink in the kitchen?" And then I was trying to think. I was like, he said, "I think it was about 10 years ago." And so here, you know, God has put these people in our lives, and even though, you know, it's been these waves of tears, but God has blessed us, and thank God for Fountain of Life, because, you know, I think back on the messages and everything. So the Lord is my shepherd, and that's what it is. So that's the one I have to follow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that's so
So-
good. So tell us a little bit about your heartbeat for the food ministry, and not just giving the food away, but you were telling how you really connected with these people, and they now are family.
they are, because there's one lady, she's a bail bondsman, and she comes over and she always says, "You know I've never really gone to church, but I know you always pray over everything." And so she said, "Well, will you pray for me and pray for my daughter?" And I met her daughter, who is an airline stewardess for American Airlines for like 25 years. Her daughter graduated and she got a master's degree. Believe it or not, I met her when she came out, and it was like 95 degrees. And she said, "Alice, go over there because it looks like you're not feeling good." And it was so hot outside. And Gina, who came from Arizona and was on, you know, one of her, whatever you call it, leaves or whatever from her job, she actually went and she said, "Let me go wash my hands and I'll help." And so she started bagging up the food, and then her mom said, "Oh, when she graduated, she sent me these wings from the, you know, that they had from that, and a glass, and it had, she sent me pictures and everything." So that was somebody I didn't know. And the other people that I have met friends with, they call me and they said, "Oh, can I have your phone number?" They call me, and they made tamales for Christmas. They made pozole for Thanksgiving. So it's, you know, and on, you know, when I'm praying over the food, sometimes my friend that works there, who's been my childhood friend, he sometimes say amen, and I'm still praying, and then they started to laugh, and he said, "Alice, you were praying." I said, "Yeah, but I have to pray that, oh, thank you, Fountain of Life. Thank you, Pastor Lewis. Thank you, Sister Lewis, for letting us be here. Thank you, Bonds, for bringing the food," you know, and that's the whole thing. And thank you, Tom and Mary, for going and getting it. And so then the prayer goes, and then I pray for the people that have asked for prayer, that are there, that are sick, because one of the ladies has Crohn's disease. So I include that in the prayer. And so I'm praying for people at that time because they're there, and I don't want them to think that, "Oh, well, I'm not going to include this." Right? They're standing in front of me, so I'm praying for that, and I ask for blessings over the food. And so I love doing that. You know, I mean, I love doing the every other Wednesday food bank, and then Saturday we have the food, and it's just, you know, and just to see when people come there, how they're grateful, and you know, and so I just ask for prayer for them, because, you know, there's people, you know, there's this one man, he walks 11 blocks to get to the food on Saturday, you know, and 11 blocks is quite a while, and he's 72. So, you know, so I pray for him, and, you know, I pray for his safety, because it's, you know, you're crossing over major streets. I don't, you know, I have to pray for that. So, you know, I have really been blessed by Pastor for asking me years ago if I could volunteer. And I mean, for me, it was like initially, because usually, I mean, I grew up being one of these kind of people that I only stayed at home and read. And so I was not, you know, if I saw somebody, I'd say hi. And that was the end of the conversation. But then I had to take on a new role of being, oh, yes, let me pray for you. And I met other people. I invited them to church. They gave me the phone number, and I've been calling them. So Food Bank has been really an extension of the church to the community because the people are really grateful. I mean, they're like, oh, you have food today? Oh, do you have, are we having Food Bank this Wednesday? I said, no, we have it the first and third Wednesday, but they do look forward to it. And, we have really good food for them. And, there's a lot that, there's 3 people that are giving it to the neighbors as well, because one of the ladies, her friend's son, he's on dialysis, so she had to quit her job to take care of this 13-year-old child that's on dialysis. And so, I pray for them because I want them to know that it's not just handing you this. I have to pray for you because I see what is really going on. So I look at it and I said, Lord, I know the house is not there and people are going back to their houses and looking through things. I told my son, I said, we cannot do that right now. I said, because for some reason it seemed like it's already been a month, because I was having a groundhog moment. Every day was Wednesday, until yesterday. Yesterday he said, Mom, today is Saturday. I said, is it? Didn't we just leave the burning house? That kind of thing. So it's really been hard because I also had a traumatic childhood thing, because even though this house burned on the 7th and 8th, in January when I was 12, on January 3rd, it had been raining. Our house caught fire from the neighbor's house next door. And at that point, what did I do? I mean, I was a child, had a gown on, and I went, and instead of grabbing the big coat, I went in a drawer and pulled out a short sleeve sweater in the rain, in a gown, and put on flip-flops. Didn't put on shoes, put on flip-flops, and I can see that sweater just like it's right in front of me right now. And the fact that here it is, 58 years later, January, the wind, and here's the house totally gone. So it was like, January is not a good month for fires for me, because, I had nothing left at the other house when I was 12. The only thing I had was a Bible that was, it was a couple of inches thick, but by the time it got wet and everything, it was, so that was what I got out of the house, was a Bible. So right now, I'm just thankful to be alive.
Yeah. So did you go back the next day then, or did you ever go back after you left there the other day?
No, we just saw it when we saw everything burning. We couldn't go back.
You knew.
Yeah, then they said, oh, you can come back once and go through your. I don't want to go back to go through anything. I would just want to be looking at it just to see that it really is real, because the porch is there and
You've seen pictures.
Yeah, my neighbor, he went there and he took the picture, and I said, oh, we have the wrought iron gate over here, the chimney, and the porch with the terracotta pots and no plants. And the bird of paradise still has beautiful orange flowers.
Oh, wow.
And so, and so I mean, I'm one of these people. I love succulents, so that was my thing. And I looked, and I have a big cactus, probably like 4 feet tall. It's still there, and it's right on the side of the driveway. So. And I said, oh, look at that. Oh, the cactus survived. It's only a little bit burned on this side. So, yeah, but that's my thing. That was, my plants. And so I said, and my plumerias, I bet they're all gone, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But God is good. And I said, well, we can't go back and do anything, redo anything. We can't change the wind, and we can't change, because there's a lot of people that my son knows, that he went to school with, and even people that lived up there on the hill, Eden Canyon. Yeah, Savag and his family. They had a 6-bedroom house. And so the house is gone. And so, a lot of the people, that my son knows, they lost their homes.
Sure.
And, so it's a hard thing. And one of my friends, her son and her daughter-in-law, they lost their house. And they're only like 3 blocks from me. And so... And she lost her car too, so we were kindred spirits then, and so.
Well, hey, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come all the way up here, because we're going to have some people, chipping into this fund that we're creating. Okay. And when they see your story, they'll know who they're helping, and you're a great citizen of the community and a kingdom builder. You pray for others, you feed others, and you love what you do.
I do. Thank you, Pastor, for asking me. And
God,
the people didn't all respond. And so.
Thank you.
Well, it's gonna be good.
So I thank the pastor for that.
Well, thanks both of you guys.
It's gonna be good.
And I love your story, Pastor, about when you were 14 and then ended up coming back all these years later and being the head pastor. So thank you.
I'd like to say Pastor Lewis is a great pastor, and we came to the church after a couple of years after our son had been killed, and he was, I think, he was very, very kind to us and very empathetic. And then it turned out that I knew him. That was a special kind of different relationship, because his dad was a minister. My dad was a minister, and not only that, they were friends and they knew each other.
Yes.
And they ministered the gospel together. So when we ran into each other as adults, had not really seen each other since children.
Yes.
But after we saw each other as adults, we kind of recognized one another. And I told my husband that I wanted to go visit Pastor John's church after our son had been killed, and we kind of had left our church for a little bit.
Great.
And we were looking for something new. So he's a great pastor.
Oh,